I guess I should start with a little context about my life. I'm Jake, a 35-year-old husband and father of two. My wife, Sarah, and I have been married for almost 10 years. We had a pretty good run, love, kids, a modest house in the suburbs. But let's be real, after a decade, things can get a little stale. That's normal, right? We had our ups and downs, like every couple, but I thought we were in a good place. At least, I thought I knew what was going on. It all began about 6 months ago when Sarah started asking to go out alone every Friday night. At first, I didn't think much of it. She claimed she needed some time to herself to unwind after a long week. I get that. Marriage can be draining, especially with kids in the mix, so I supported her. But as the weeks rolled on, something felt off. I noticed subtle changes. She was more guarded with her phone and started to take longer to get ready. I tried not to read too much into it, but the little things were eating away at me. Then came the roses. Pretty, vibrant roses that I never bought for her. The first time I saw them, I thought they were from a friend or something. But when it happened again the next week, and the week after that, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was up. Each time she went out, she would come home smelling like a different perfume, something I'd never smelled on her before. I asked her about it once, and she just rolled her eyes. "It's just a friend, Jake. Chill out," she snapped. That "just a friend" line would haunt me. One Friday night, my gut told me to follow her. I stashed my phone in my pocket and headed out, trying to act casual, like I was just going for a drive. I felt like a total creep, but the nagging doubt in my mind was too strong. I parked a few blocks away from our house and waited. It wasn't long before I saw her getting into a car with some guy. I couldn't make out his face, but he was tall and had an easy smile. As they drove off, I felt my heart drop. I knew I wasn't imagining things anymore. I followed them, keeping a safe distance, and they ended up at a small Italian restaurant not too far from our neighborhood. It was cozy, lit with soft lights. My heart raced as I saw them walk in together. I parked a few spaces down and sat there, watching. Anger and confusion boiled inside me. How could she do this? I picked up my phone, my hands shaking, and snapped a few photos from my car. The whole situation felt unreal, like a bad movie. The longer I watched, the more I felt like a stranger in my own life, watching my wife share laughter and smiles with someone who wasn't me. After what felt like an eternity, Sarah leaned over and kissed this guy. It was a soft kiss, the kind I used to give her when we were still in that honeymoon phase, the kind that made me feel secure and loved. But right then, it felt like a knife in my heart. The betrayal was as clear as the night sky. I wanted to scream, to bang on the window, and demand answers. But I just sat there, paralyzed by a whirlwind of emotions: shock, anger, desperation. Eventually, they left the restaurant, and I followed them home. I had no idea how I was going to confront her. I couldn't believe my wife was cheating on me. In that moment, the life I thought I had crumbled. What was I supposed to do with this information? How could I face her after what I had just witnessed? I parked the car, heart racing, and sat there for what felt like hours before finally forcing myself to go inside. I walked through the front door, and the house felt eerily quiet. I knew this was just the beginning of a long, painful journey. Confronting Sarah was going to be the hardest thing I'd ever done, but I knew I couldn't keep this to myself. I needed to know the truth. The confrontation would be next. I just had to figure out how to approach it without exploding. I spent the rest of that night tossing and turning, replaying the scene at the restaurant in my mind. Every time I closed my eyes, I could see Sarah leaning in to kiss that guy, and it felt like I was being stabbed all over again. I couldn't shake the image from my head, the intimacy, the laughter, the connection I thought was just ours. The next morning, I woke up with a heavy heart and a clear intention. I had to confront her. There was no way I could let this slide. As I brewed my morning coffee, I prepared myself for what was to come. When Sarah came downstairs, she looked as though nothing was out of the ordinary. She smiled and kissed me on the cheek, a gesture that now felt hollow. I could feel the tension in my chest tighten as I tried to act casual. I needed to find the right moment to bring it up without losing my cool altogether. After breakfast, I couldn't take it anymore. I turned to her, my heart racing, and said, "Can we talk?" She looked up from her phone, her brow slightly furrowed. "Sure, what's up? I need to know where you've been going every Friday night. You keep saying it's just for you, but it doesn't feel right." I tried to keep my voice steady, but it wavered slightly as the words left my mouth. Sarah rolled her eyes, a familiar gesture that made my blood boil. "Oh, come on, Jake. It's just a break for me. You know how stressful things have been with the kids. I need some time away." "Time away, is that what you call it?" I took a breath, gathering the courage to continue. "Because I saw you last night. You were with a guy, Sarah. You kissed him. I followed you because something didn't feel right, and now I know why." Her face went pale, and for a split second I thought I saw a flicker of guilt in her eyes. But then she snapped back, crossing her arms defensively. "You've got to be kidding me, Jake. You followed me. That's so low. You have no trust in me at all." "Trust? You're the one shattering it. I saw you, Sarah. How could you do this to me?" My voice rose, and I could feel the anger boiling up, urging me to explode. "Maybe if you paid more attention to me, I wouldn't need to go out at all." She shot back, her voice dripping with bitterness. "I'm not the only one who's been distant lately. You're consumed with work. I feel like I'm living with a roommate, not a husband." Her accusation stung, and I struggled to keep my composure. "That doesn't justify cheating on me. You could have just talked to me. This isn't about me not being attentive, it's about you lying to my face." "I'm not lying. You don't understand what it's like to feel so alone in a marriage. You've shut me out," she said, her voice rising with each word. "And now you want to come at me like I'm the villain here, just because you couldn't handle your own feelings." I shook my head in disbelief. "You're right that we've had our issues, but I didn't think it would lead you to cheat. What happened to the vows we took, the promises we made?" She opened her mouth to respond, but nothing came out. I could see the realization washing over her, a flicker of understanding that she had crossed a line. But instead of owning up to it, she shifted back into defense mode. "You don't know the whole story, Jake. It's not what you think. The guy is just a friend, and it's not serious." I felt a mix of anger and sadness flood over me. "A friend? I'll never understand how you could let it go this far," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "How can you say that when you were clearly intimate with him?" "Intimate? You're twisting my words," she replied, exasperation evident in her tone. "You don't know what I'm feeling. I didn't have anyone to talk to, and he was there, listening to me when you were." The back and forth felt like an endless cycle of blame, and I couldn't help but wonder if this was how it would always be. "So what now? You expect me to just let it go?" "I saw what I saw, Sarah. You kissed him. You chose to be with him instead of being honest with me." She paused for a moment, and I could see the conflict in her eyes. I don't know what to say. I didn't think it was a big deal at first. I didn't intend for it to go this far," she finally admitted, her voice quieter now. "Not a big deal? How can you even say that? This is my life too, our life together. What you did is a betrayal of everything we built," I shouted, my emotions spiraling out of control. As the conversation dragged on, I felt the weight of our failing marriage hanging heavily between us. This wasn't just a fight. It was the beginning of a reckoning, and I had to decide how I would move forward from here. I felt a mix of anger, hurt, and a strange sense of relief that I finally knew the truth. But what would I do with that truth? I had no idea where to go from here. The bitterness of betrayal seeped into every part of my being, leaving me feeling lost and broken. What I once thought was a solid foundation was crumbling beneath my feet. As we sat there, the silence between us stretched for what felt like an eternity. The love that once filled our home felt like a distant memory, replaced by a chasm of hurt and mistrust. I knew I had to figure out my next steps, whether that was fighting for our marriage or walking away from it altogether. In the end, I realized I had to give myself time to think clearly, to weigh my options and decide what I truly wanted moving forward. This was no small decision, and the emotional roller coaster was only just beginning. After the confrontation, I spent a few days in a haze, grappling with the emotional fallout. It was like I was living in a fog, moving through the motions but not really engaging with the world around me. Sarah and I had barely spoken since that fateful day. The air in our home felt heavy, filled with unspoken words and unresolved tension. I went to work, came home, and retreated into the sanctuary of my own thoughts, replaying every moment of our fight over and over in my mind. I kept asking myself the same questions. How could she betray me? How could she throw away everything we had built together? And what the hell was I supposed to do now? I felt lost, like a ship adrift at sea without a compass. In the following days, Sarah tried to engage me, reaching out with half-hearted apologies and attempts to explain herself. "I didn't mean for it to happen," she would say, as if that made it any better. "I just wanted someone to listen to me. I couldn't help but feel that her words were empty, mere excuses to mitigate her guilt. One evening, as I sat on the couch staring blankly at the television, she approached me. "Can we talk again?" she asked, her voice softer this time. I sighed, feeling the fatigue wash over me. "What is there to say, Sarah? You cheated on me. You broke my trust." I couldn't help the bitterness that crept into my voice. She sat down beside me, looking genuinely remorseful for the first time. "I know I messed up. I was lonely, Jake. I thought we were in a rut and I thought I could handle it. I didn't want to hurt you. Then why didn't you just come to me? We could have worked through it together." I shot back, the hurt bubbling to the surface. "Instead, you chose to go behind my back and betray me." "I know, I was stupid," she said, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "But I didn't think it would go this far. I didn't mean for things to get physical, it just happened." Hearing her say that felt like a slap in the face. "So, you're saying you accidentally fell in love with someone else? That's a hell of a coincidence, Sarah." "I wasn't in love, it was a stupid fling," she exclaimed, frustration creeping into her tone. "I didn't want to destroy our family, I'm sorry." The more she spoke, the more my anger simmered. I felt like a volcano ready to erupt. "Sorry doesn't cut it. You had a choice every single time you went out with him. You had a choice to stop it before it turned into something more. You didn't think about our family, our kids." She looked down, visibly shaken by my words. "I know I messed up, you're right. I should have thought about you and the kids. But in that moment I was selfish and I just wanted to feel something again. I thought I could separate it from our life." "Clearly you couldn't," I replied, my voice trembling with pent-up rage. "You allowed yourself to go down a path that you knew would hurt us. You put your needs above everything else." I know," she said, her voice breaking. "I'm trying to explain that I regret it. I never wanted to hurt you." "Regret isn't enough, Sarah. You've broken our trust. I don't even know if I can look at you the same way again." I felt the tears prick at the corners of my eyes as I spoke. "How can I move past this? How can we ever go back to how we were?" "I don't know," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "But I want to try. I love you, Jake. I don't want to lose you." Love. The word hung in the air like a question mark. Did she truly still love me, or was this just a desperate plea to salvage what was left? I wanted to believe her, but doubt gnawed at the edges of my heart. "What does that even mean now? How can I trust you again? How do I know you won't just run back to him when things get tough?" "I promise I won't. I need you to believe me," she said, reaching out to touch my arm. I flinched slightly at her touch, unsure if I wanted her comfort or not. "I'm willing to do whatever it takes to earn back your trust." I wanted to scream at her, to tell her that it was too late for promises and that I felt like a fool for even considering listening. But somewhere deep down, I knew I had a decision to make. I could either walk away from the wreckage of our marriage, or I could try to patch things up. The thought of breaking up our family terrified me, but the thought of staying with someone who could betray me so easily was just as daunting. "I need time to think," I finally said, standing up and walking away from her. "Just give me space for now." As I retreated to the sanctuary of our bedroom, I felt a wave of emotions crash over me. I was angry, hurt, confused, and utterly heartbroken. I had no idea what the future held for us, but I knew I couldn't make any rash decisions yet. I needed clarity to make the right choice. The days turned into weeks, and I couldn't shake the feeling of betrayal. I had to decide whether to fight for my marriage or let it go. I spent long nights lying awake, weighing the pros and cons in my mind, imagining how life would be if I chose to leave. The thought of breaking up our family was agonizing, but the thought of staying in a marriage without trust felt just as suffocating. The emotional toll was immense. I felt like I was on a tightrope, balancing between love and betrayal, and every step I took sent ripples through my heart. I needed to figure out if Sarah truly understood the gravity of her actions, and if I could ever forgive her, let alone rebuild the life we had once shared. The struggle was real, and I knew I had to come to terms with my feelings before I could decide how to move forward. But for now, all I could do was wait and hope for clarity to find me amidst the chaos. As the days turned into weeks, I found myself trapped in a cycle of unresolved emotions. The house felt hollow, filled with tension and uncertainty, and I often caught myself staring out the window, lost in thought. I was trying to process the betrayal, the anger, and the heartache, but clarity remained elusive. I felt like a stranger in my own home, and every time I saw Sarah, the memories of her betrayal crashed over me like a tidal wave. It wasn't until one particularly quiet evening that I felt a flicker of resolve. I had just come back from a long day at work, and Sarah was sitting at the kitchen table, her gaze downcast. The sight of her tugged at my heartstrings, but I quickly reminded myself why I was struggling. I can't keep doing this, I thought. I need answers and a plan. As I poured myself a glass of water, I decided it was time to have a serious conversation, not just about what had happened, but about where we were headed. I took a deep breath, steeling myself for what I needed to say. "Sarah, can we talk?" I said, trying to keep my voice steady. She looked up, her eyes wide. "Sure, what's on your mind?" "Look, I've had some time to think. A lot, actually. I need to know if you're really committed to working on this because I can't keep going like this, living in limbo. I want to work on it, Jake. I really do," she said, her voice earnest. "I know I messed up, but I'm willing to do whatever it takes to make it right." "Okay," I said, feeling a mix of hope and skepticism. "What does that even look like? I need to know you understand the gravity of what happened. It's not just about a fling, you shattered my trust." "I know, and I can't express how sorry I am," she said, her voice trembling slightly. "I want to go to counseling together. I think it would help us communicate better and get to the root of the issues we've been facing." Counseling. It was a step I hadn't considered, but the idea intrigued me. I had always believed that therapy could be a useful tool for couples, especially in navigating complex emotions. But I also felt a part of me hesitate. Would talking to a stranger really help us? Would I be able to forgive her enough to even try? "I'll think about it," I said cautiously. "But I need you to understand that this isn't just about fixing things on the surface. You need to show me that you're committed to this relationship, and that means being transparent with me." "I promise," she said earnestly. "I'll be an open book, just please don't give up on me. I love you and I want to make this right." Hearing her say that still gave me a twinge of hope, but I knew I had to keep my guard up. "It's going to take time for me to trust you again, Sarah. You need to be patient with me. There will be days when I'm still angry, still hurt." "I understand," she replied, her expression softening. "I'll be here every step of the way. Just know that I'm willing to put in the work." We spent the rest of the evening talking and sharing our feelings more openly than we had in a long time. It was a fragile conversation, filled with vulnerability and uncertainty, but there was a sense of connection I hadn't felt since before her betrayal. I could see that she was genuinely trying to engage, and for the first time, I felt a flicker of the love we once shared. After that night, we started to make some changes. We agreed to set aside time each week to discuss how we were feeling, where we were in the healing process, and what we needed from each other. It was slow, awkward, and often painful, but it was necessary. I found myself opening up more, sharing my hurt and frustration, and Sarah, in turn, began to acknowledge her mistakes and the impact they had on our family. Still, there were moments of doubt. I would catch her looking at her phone, and my heart would race with anxiety. I would worry that she might slip back into old habits or that she might still be in contact with him. I had to constantly remind myself to breathe, to trust the process, and to rely on our commitment to heal. One night, after a particularly emotional discussion about our relationship, Sarah brought up the idea of counseling again. "I really think it would be beneficial for us, Jake. It's not just about what happened, but about how we can grow together," she said, her eyes pleading. I hesitated, weighing the idea in my mind. "I want to believe in this, Sarah, I really do, but I need to know you're serious about it, that you're not just saying it to make me feel better." "I am serious," she insisted. "I don't want to lose you. I want to work on becoming better partners. I think counseling can help us navigate this together." After giving it considerable thought, I finally agreed to go to couples therapy. It was a decision that filled me with trepidation, but I hoped it would lead us on the path to rebuilding our foundation. I wanted to believe there was still a way forward for us, even if it felt like we were standing on shaky ground. The next week, we had our first session. Walking into that therapist's office felt surreal. As we sat down, I could feel the weight of our unresolved issues pressing down on us. The therapist, a kind woman with a soothing presence, started by asking us to share our story and how we ended up in her office. As I spoke, laying bare my feelings of betrayal and hurt, I could see Sarah listening intently. I felt vulnerable and exposed, but I pushed through, wanting her to understand the depth of my pain. After sharing our perspectives, the therapist guided us through discussions that forced us to confront the patterns in our relationship. It was uncomfortable, raw, and emotional. But as we began to unpack our feelings, I could see a shift in Sarah. She was starting to open up in ways I hadn't seen before. In those sessions, I began to realize something important. It wasn't just about her betrayal. It was about us both understanding how to communicate better and acknowledge the cracks that had formed in our relationship over the years. I started to see that repairing our marriage would be a multi-step process, requiring effort and vulnerability from both sides. But even with the glimmers of hope, there were still moments of doubt. I would often find myself wrestling with my emotions, torn between anger and a desire to move on. I had to confront the reality that healing would take time. There were no quick fixes to the pain she had caused. As the weeks passed and our therapy sessions continued, I slowly began to feel a sense of clarity. For better or worse, I had chosen to stay and fight for our marriage. I realized I had to actively participate in this healing process, to let myself be vulnerable even when it felt uncomfortable. I had to learn to trust again. We still had a long road ahead, but for the first time since the betrayal, I felt a sense of cautious optimism. Maybe, just maybe, we could emerge from this darkness stronger than before. But I also knew that the scars of this betrayal would remain, and I had to come to terms with that before I could truly move forward. As I lay awake at night, I couldn't help but wonder if healing was possible and what that would look like for us. As the weeks of therapy rolled on, I found myself navigating a complex emotional landscape. Every session seemed to peel back layers of hurt, revealing both the good and the bad within our relationship. Sometimes, I felt like we were making progress, sharing moments of connection, laughter, and even glimpses of the intimacy we had lost. Other times, the weight of Sarah's betrayal would crash down like a storm, leaving me feeling crushed under its intensity. The therapist had been instrumental in guiding our conversations, helping us to articulate feelings that had long been buried beneath resentment and pain. We delved into the roots of our issues, how we had both neglected each other in different ways, how the pressures of parenting had strained the bond we once cherished. It was eye-opening, and I could see Sarah genuinely trying to understand my perspective. One afternoon during our session, the therapist asked us to reflect on what we wanted moving forward. "What do you both envision for your relationship?" She prodded gently. I glanced at Sarah, who was looking down, her fingers fidgeting nervously. "I want to rebuild our trust," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "But I feel like I'm constantly battling against the image of you with him. That's something I don't think I can erase easily." "I get that," Sarah interjected, her voice cracking. "I want to rebuild your trust too. I never wanted to hurt you. I just want another chance to prove that I can be the wife you deserve." "Actions speak louder than words, Sarah," I replied, feeling a mix of hope and skepticism. "It's going to take time for me to feel secure again. I need to see you putting in the effort, not just during counseling, but in our everyday lives. I'm willing to do whatever it takes," she promised, her eyes earnest. "I'll be transparent, no more secrets. You can have my phone or whatever it takes." The openness was refreshing, but as much as I wanted to believe her, I still felt that nagging doubt. "It's not just about sharing your phone or checking in," I said. "It's about making sure we're both committed to our marriage and to each other. We have to work on our communication too." After that session, we left feeling lighter, but I still felt a weight on my chest. I spent the next few days reflecting on the idea of rebuilding trust. It was a daunting prospect, and deep down, I knew it would take more than just promises exchanged in therapy. As we continued our sessions, I noticed Sarah making small changes. She was more attentive, asking about my day, and engaging with me in ways she hadn't in years. It felt good to have that connection again, but there were still moments when I caught her looking at her phone, and I couldn't help but feel a rush of anxiety. Old habits die hard, and my mind would race with questions. Was she still talking to him? Was she still hiding things? One night after a particularly challenging day at work, I came home feeling drained. I walked into the house and immediately sensed something was off. Sarah was in the living room, her phone in hand, and she quickly tucked it away when I entered. My heart sank and I felt a pang of suspicion. "Hey, how was your day?" she asked, forcing a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "It was fine," I replied, my voice flat. "What about you? What's with the phone?" "Nothing, just a group chat with some friends," she said, but I could hear the tension in her voice. "Can I see it?" The question slipped out before I could stop myself. I felt the heat rise in my cheeks as I said it, but at that moment I needed reassurance. "Jake, really?" she replied, annoyance creeping in. "I thought we were past this. I told you I'd be an open book. Can't you just trust me?" I took a deep breath, trying to rein in my emotions. "It's not that simple, Sarah. I'm trying, but seeing you hide your phone like that triggers all kinds of feelings for me. I don't want to keep going in circles. You have to give me space to heal too," she snapped, frustration evident in her tone. I felt my own anger rising, and I had to remind myself to keep it in check. "I know this isn't easy for either of us, but it's hard for me to trust you when it feels like you're still hiding." After a tense back and forth, I dropped the subject, but the unease lingered in the air. I went to bed that night feeling restless, my mind racing with doubts and insecurities. The trust we were trying to rebuild seemed just out of reach, and I wondered if we could truly get back to a place of understanding. The following week in therapy, we addressed the tension that had surfaced. "What happened during the week? It seems like there's still a lot of unresolved feelings," the therapist observed. I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of my words. "I think I'm struggling with trust. Even though she says she's trying, I still feel like there's so much unsaid." Sarah nodded, looking genuinely remorseful. "I'm sorry if I've made you feel that way, Jake. It wasn't my intention. I thought I was showing you I was committed, but I see now that it's not enough." The therapist encouraged us to dive deeper. "What are some specific actions that would help rebuild that trust?" I thought for a moment, then replied, "I need consistency. I need to see her making an effort to be open and honest, even when it's difficult." "I can do that," Sarah said, determination lacing her voice. "I'll make it a point to be more transparent, and I'll check in with you more often." As the session progressed, we worked on establishing new communication habits, and I felt a sense of hope beginning to bloom. It wasn't a magic fix, but we were laying the groundwork for a new beginning. After the session, we left the office feeling more connected than we had in a long time. I could see that Sarah was genuinely trying to engage and put in the effort. For the first time, I felt like we were on the same team, working toward a common goal. However, there were still moments when I found myself questioning whether this new path would really lead to healing or if it was just a temporary fix. As I lay in bed that night, I felt a mixture of hope and uncertainty swirling within me. I realized that rebuilding trust would be a marathon, not a sprint, and I had to prepare myself for the long haul. I couldn't predict where we would end up, but I was willing to try. I had to keep believing that healing was possible, even if it meant confronting the pain head-on. As the days turned into weeks, I felt a cautious optimism growing within me. We were moving forward, one step at a time, and I hoped that with each step, we would come closer to the love and trust we once shared. As the weeks turned into months, the journey of healing continued. I had come to accept that rebuilding trust wouldn't happen overnight. It was a process, filled with moments of progress and setbacks. There were days when I felt hopeful, and others when the weight of her betrayal would crush me, leaving me questioning everything. But through therapy, we were learning more about each other, and I began to recognize the small changes Sarah was making. One evening, after a long day, we sat on the couch together. The kids were asleep, and for the first time in a while, the atmosphere felt relaxed. I turned to her, noticing how she was gazing at me, her eyes softer than they had been in recent memory. "You know," I said, trying to gauge her mood, "I appreciate the effort you've been putting in. It's not easy for either of us." "I'm just grateful you're still here," she replied, her voice sincere. I know I messed everything up, but I want to show you that I can be the partner you deserve. As we talked, I could feel the connection between us starting to rekindle. It wasn't the same as before, but it was something new, something that had the potential to be even stronger. We began discussing our relationship goals, how we could work together to create a healthier dynamic moving forward. I mentioned wanting to prioritize date nights, to carve out time for just the two of us amidst the chaos of parenting. Absolutely, she said, her eyes lighting up. I think we need that. It will help us reconnect on a deeper level. We started planning our first official date night in months, and I felt a strange mix of excitement and apprehension. The thought of going out together without the cloud of betrayal hanging over us was both exhilarating and nerve-wracking. As the day approached, I found myself second-guessing everything, wondering if I could really let go of the past, even just for a few hours. When the night finally arrived, I put on a shirt I hadn't worn since before the affair, and I caught a glimpse of myself in the mirror. I looked different, more confident maybe. Sarah looked beautiful, and as we stepped out together, I felt a flicker of the old spark we once had. Dinner was enjoyable. We talked, laughed, and reminisced about the early days of our relationship. It felt good to reconnect, even if it was still fragile. The tension of the past lingered in the background, but for the first time I didn't let it consume me. We were actively choosing to move forward together. After dinner, we decided to take a walk in the nearby park. The weather was mild and the air was filled with the scent of blooming flowers. As we strolled, I felt the tension begin to ease and I started to truly enjoy the evening. I've missed this, I admitted, glancing over at Sarah, just being able to talk and be ourselves. She smiled, and for a moment I saw the woman I fell in love with all those years ago. Me too, I've missed us. As we walked hand in hand, a sense of hope blossomed within me. I realized that while the scars of betrayal would always be a part of our story, we had the power to write a new chapter. I wanted to let go of the anger and resentment that had weighed me down for so long. Jake, she said, breaking the comfortable silence, I know it's going to take time, but I want to be transparent with you about everything. I promise to keep communicating even when it's tough. I appreciate that, I replied, feeling a warmth spread through me. It means a lot to know you're committed to this. After our walk, we headed home and settled on the couch to watch a movie, something that felt normal and comforting. As the credits rolled, I found myself leaning closer to Sarah, and she rested her head on my shoulder. In that moment, I felt a flicker of genuine affection, and it reminded me of what we had once shared. In the days and weeks that followed, I continued to focus on rebuilding trust while allowing myself to let go of the past. There were still moments of doubt, but I found comfort in knowing that we were both committed to making this work. I began to realize that healing wasn't about forgetting. It was about learning to navigate the scars together. One night after another productive therapy session, I felt a surge of determination. We can do this, I told Sarah as we sat on the couch, our hands intertwined. We just have to keep putting in the effort. Absolutely, she replied, her eyes shining with sincerity. I'm here for the long haul, no matter what it takes. I took a deep breath, feeling a renewed sense of hope. I'm willing to make this work too, but we need to keep being honest with each other. I promise, she said, squeezing my hand. We're in this together. The months of healing transformed our relationship in ways I hadn't expected. We learned to communicate better, to express our feelings without fear of judgment. I had my moments of weakness, but they were met with understanding instead of defensiveness. Slowly but surely, we began to rebuild the trust that had been shattered. In time, I found that the pain of her betrayal wasn't as overwhelming as it once had been. Instead of letting it define our relationship, we used it as a catalyst for growth. I realized that while betrayal could break a marriage, it could also serve as a turning point toward deeper understanding and connection. Looking back now, I can say that this journey has taught me resilience and the importance of vulnerability. I've learned that love isn't perfect, and it can sometimes be messy and complicated. But it's also worth fighting for, worth nurturing and rebuilding, even when it feels impossible. As we continue on this path, I carry with me the lessons of our past. I know that there will always be challenges ahead, but I also know that together, we can face anything. We have chosen to grow and evolve as partners, and that choice is what makes our journey worthwhile. I've learned to believe in second chances, not just in love but in ourselves and our ability to change. As we move forward, I'm committed to cherishing the present and embracing the future, together.